Hey, good Sunday morning, YouTube. Just getting my back porch stuff together. Spent the morning sitting out thinking about a conversation point. Like, what the heck's going on? So, videos acting up this morning. Odd when I get specific, some of them seem to act up more than others, but hey. Alright, here's a really serious one with a suit and tie. Just imagine I look pretty and have a green screen behind me that's fancy, okay? Now that we've done the setup and makeup and camera is done, nuclear waste disposal. Rule number one, there is no difference between commercial nuclear waste, medical nuclear waste, or military nuclear waste. These are all the same fundamental health physics issues, period. There's two layers to this. There's external dosage and there's internal dosage. Internal dosage risk multipliers are exponential compared to external, depending on the element. Some elements you'll just puke up, hopefully before they do anything to you. That's poisoning. That's chemical poisoning. That's one of the outcomes of this. So where's the game in this nuclear waste disposal? The game is the amount of profits these LLCs that are created just for this purpose, just for this specific purpose. They know how much money's in this and how much they can skim off the top, because they're going to bill the government $500 an hour for an FTE, and they're going to pay him $150 an hour. Now let's get bent about that guy's $150 an hour salary instead of the money being skimmed off the top for profits, for nice suits, for pretty cars, for corporate jets, for buying politicians, for paying churches to teach us, our children, some rather foolish things and ideas, like the earth is young. So here's what I know about these nuclear waste planning. Having followed, I was too young to know the details, but the initial conversations about waste disposal were deep burial, like we're trying to do. We started to do, how long ago? 40 years ago. And that still is struggling, because it's more than a political issue. It's a science issue. And the politics mixed with the sciences are fighting each other because it costs money to do these things correctly. So the initial ideas under study were trying to make it not radioactive. Those techniques don't exist yet. They might, they could in some day, but they don't exist. There is a possibility out there. I could stretch into that in conversation, but that's not the point. So deep sequestration is basically the answer that they've come up with no matter what. We want to bury this stuff somewhere. So one of the ideas is this salt dome. This is what they're playing with down in Texas. Not only are salt domes liquids in geological time, they have very specific needs and characteristics for feeding. So one of the discussions way back in the day was humidity in those salt domes. Now, folks don't talk about this a whole lot, but basically it's oxygen in those salt domes. Oxygen is a catalyst. Oxygen causes rust. So all those buried barrels down there that we have bringing humidity into that salt chamber matters. It changes the decay rates of those barrels. They're going to fall open sooner. They're going to collapse. They're going to be less manageable if we ever did have to get back into those goddamn holes. So managed deep sequestration, or shallow sequestration, is what we're doing in Texas. Did you know when earthquakes happen in Mexico that the wave rolls all the way up through Texas? And it's just a little roll. It's maybe just a quarter of an inch of roll in the ground, but anything in that ground is going to be upset and disturbed. What does that mean? We could go into that. It means decaying barrels, like the barrels that were dumped at the bottom of the ocean. The barrels won't rust because there's no oxygen down there. Actually, they do rust because there is just enough oxygen that their rust time is going to be decades, hundreds of years before those barrels disintegrate and more of whatever's in them is released at the bottom of the ocean, if ocean mining doesn't disrupt something, because we forgot that we had dumped a bunch of nuclear waste down the bottom of some trench. These are the vagaries of nuclear. So one of the other ideas, it's still deep sequestration, but that was very deep sequestration where we made sure that the materials were put into a subcontinental rift or a subduction zone, so that those materials, we know, could basically never get back in contact with the surface, or couldn't geologically, for millions or billions of years. So this is why I'm kind of keen on that very deep sequestration. But we don't know. All we're being told is a bunch of bullshit. They don't even know what high and low level is. The Pinnacle Sciences, the Rick Perrys running this shit shows out here, the Donald Trumps in charge of it, the Republicans that haven't got, the Republicans want you to pray for this stuff. Think about that. Think about the harm, the deep societal harm in not knowing that you've just polluted an area, and if people go live there, they're going to suffer for it. Building more hospitals, I guess, is necessary, but we're kidding ourselves. So there you go. Sunday morning. Didn't say enough, deep enough about much of anything, but I've already gone 7 minutes. If we want to talk about sequestration, all I could do is try to find an expert that understands the vagaries of these subjects, that understands the pathways, the chemical pathways available for these elements to escape. They escape as gases because many of them are right at their vapor point, their vapor pressure. So there's gases coming off of these. The gases out of one drum might not like the gases in another drum. Do they know what's put down there? This is what killed us at Hanford. On the DOE site, they mix so much crap together, they have just a mess. It's like trying to get the colors back out of Play-Doh. That's a good analogy for it. So yes, the most deadly, the most serious pollution on the planet, the most federal dollars spent on research. The research is done by private contractors, not the federal government. Most of this shit's been contracted out through Republican grift, because an LLC can come in and say, oh, you had $400 salaries, including benefits. I'll just steal all the benefits. That gives me $100 profit. I'm only going to pay you $100 an hour, so there's another $200. I'll stick 8 managers in between and buy a corporate jet to fly them around. That was Hewlett Packard. That's why I quit those sons of bitches. Because, like Faith, the corporate jets were much more important than the workers. So, hey, good morning. Good Sunday morning. Thoughts and prayers out there, folks. Thoughts and prayers. And love. Just voices. More voices. Thank you if you listened.